Hello friends, I'm Steve Sandford. You're watching Dominion Report. As part of this channel's series on fascism, today we're going to talk about Umberto Eco's 14 Features of Fascism. Now, later in the video, I'm going to ask a question which I'm hoping you'll listen for and provide an answer in the comments, so watch for that coming up in a few minutes. Umberto Eco was an Italian writer, novelist, political and social commentator. His most popular novel, The Name of the Rose, was made into a major motion picture starring Sean Connery. He was born in 1932, and he grew up in Mussolini's fascist Italian regime. Of all of Eco's prolific writing, the one that we're going to cover today is his essay, 14 Features of Fascism. Now note that this is different from Lawrence Britt's 14 Characteristics of Fascism, as well as from Naomi Wolf's 10 Steps of Fascism, both of which we have covered already on the channel. Now, you may notice there are some conceptual overlap. So without further ado, here are the features, along with, in some cases, some examples that we've seen in recent headlines. Number 1, the cult of tradition. Now, what this means is tradition, but as viewed through the lens of nostalgia and mythology, not reality. That's why it's a cult. And there seems to be a desire to return to a make-believe great golden age again. Perhaps you may have heard a bumper sticker slogan chanted at a rally. Okay, so number 2, the rejection of modernism. This is where Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, is seen as the beginning of depravity. Fascism rejects basic truth. George Orwell has told us this. Fascism punishes those who tell truths. As an example, I give you Anthony Fauci. Okay, feature number 3, the cult of action for action's sake. So action is considered beautiful and must be taken without pause and without reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. Thinkers, academics, scientists, medical professionals must all be silenced in one way or another. Number 4, disagreement is treason. In a liberal democracy, free speech is protected at all costs. Because without the capacity to hold the government accountable, a democracy is no longer a democracy. So disagreement as treason begins by discrediting free and fair media, labeling them perhaps, say, fake news. And it ends with all media being government-controlled propaganda. Feature number 5, fear of difference. So an early appeal of the fascist movement is to appeal against others, against intruders, perhaps maybe the ones who bring crime and disease to your country or eat your pets. Number 6 is appeal to social frustration. Now, this is an opportunist play to appeal to the chronically stressed, very often the chronically financially stressed. Usually this is a middle class that has been separated from its purchasing power by a widening wealth gap. This is often caused by an evolving tax structure that increasingly benefits the wealthy, moving wealth from the many to the few. Reagan, Bush II, and Trump in his first term signed major tax bills doing exactly this. And the middle class is still waiting for the wealth to trickle down. Meanwhile, Democrats, when they were in power, did very little to undo it. Number 7, obsession with a plot. So very common in the psychology of fascism, there are dark forces at play, a deep state, if you will, working in the background against the efforts of those who are actually perpetrating the fascism. Followers feel besieged by those same imaginary forces and end up feeling a bond with their fascist leader. Number 8, The enemy is both weak and strong. Now, a continuing shifting of rhetorical focus can paint the enemy of fascism to be at times weak, lazy, sleepy, and at other times mastermind perpetrators of the plot, as mentioned in number 7 above. You know, for this reason, I think we now know why Sleepy Joe was also the leader of a massive operation of so-called election stealing. Feature number 9, pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. So in fascism, there is no struggle for life. Rather, life is lived for struggle. So in other words, life is permanent warfare, and there is always an enemy to fight, which of course justifies, among other things, a significant military expansion. Now, critical thinkers will note that this leads to a logical fallacy. Perpetual war and ultimate triumph cannot coexist, but we know what happens to critical thinkers. Number 10, contempt for the weak. Every member of society is superior to the other because they are part of the in-group. However, even within the in-group, there are levels, and every level of the fascist hierarchy looks down on every person who is at a lower level. This goes right up to and includes the leader, who holds the entire country in contempt for being stupid enough to allow them to become leader. Those lowest in the hierarchy at least have the others to look down on. Others are often immigrants, foreigners, but can also include the members of the LGBTQ community, those with disabilities, and in fact, anybody who has been ejected from the tribe. And that often includes journalists, academics, etc. Number 11, everybody is educated to be a hero. Now, the fascist hero loves country above life, and death for the cause is glorious. The fascist is actually impatient to die often, and in their impatience frequently sends others to their death. Number 12, machismo and weaponry. Machismo tends to group both permanent war and heroism in the sexual sphere. Simply put, war is for men. Machismo includes both disdain for women and also intolerance for non-standard sexual practices. Feature number 13 is selective populism. Now, I'm going to do a video on populism, but in this case, we're talking about how the common will of the people is distinct from and superior to that of any individual. Now, what exactly is the common will of the people? Well, people don't have a common will, but it is the leader's job to determine, interpret, if you will, what that common will actually is. Fascists use this concept to delegitimize democratic institutions that no longer represent the voice of the people. You know, we've seen attacks on universities. Another example, perhaps, would be the Department of Education. Sadly, there are many at this moment. Feature number 14, which is the last one here, newspeak. And what this means, what this means is the use of and promotion of limited vocabulary. Impoverished vocabulary limits critical thinking. Now, who was it who said they love the uneducated? So there it is. Those are the 14 features of fascism as described by Umberto Eco. Now it's time to ask you the question that I promised earlier. So, of all the features listed, are there any that you haven't seen actually happening in today's United States? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. You know, we've done 3 different videos now on various interpretations, characteristics, and features of fascism. And if you haven't seen the others, be sure to look for the About Fascism playlist.